Good morning to my awesome first grade scholars. It is Thursday, yay! We only have 5 more days left of guided reading with Miss Rossi, and then you are second graders. You guys are doing an awesome job. I'm so proud of you. And today is our last day that we're going to practice inferences. So I know we're going to practice inferences every day, but this is our last day. We're going to talk about inferences because next week we're just going to be reading some informational text and answering some questions. So this week is today is our last time talking about inferences. So let's remember, what is an inference? Friends, I want you to pause your video and tell me what an inference is now. An inference is a guess. An inference is a yes, nice job. It's a guess based on 2 really important things. Pause your video and tell me what 2 things we need to make an inference now. We need text evidence and schema. We need excellent. And schema is what you know. Schema is okay. So in the last 3 days, we've used our schema about equality and making fair laws, and we've used our schema about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and Ruby Bridges. Today we're going to shift gears a little bit and we're going to talk about someone that you already know. Her name is Jane Goodall. Her name is yes, and you read about Jane Goodall in Miss Cherney's videos when you were learning about chimpanzees. And so today we're going to read another book where you have some schema already in your brain. So you already know about Jane Goodall, or you should know about Jane Goodall, about how she went to Africa to study chimpanzees. And we're going to learn a little bit more about what Jane Goodall did when she was studying chimpanzees. Let's go ahead and practice our inference sentence stem. Put your finger underneath the first word. We're reading together on 2, 1, 2. In the story, I read blank. So that makes me think blank. Excellent job. That's our sentence stem that we are going to use to answer our inferential questions. All right, let's go ahead and get started with Jane Goodall. Ooh, she's one of my favorite people. She does so many cool things. So let's continue to read about what she does. I want you to start with the table of contents. Remember, this tells us the different sections or chapters of our book. So if you read the table of contents, you're going to get a little bit of an idea about what we're going to read about in our book today. Pause your video and read the table of contents now. All right, friends, nice job. Oh, and there's real Jane Goodall. So cool. I love this book because we have real pictures of Jane Goodall doing her awesome work. So there she is. There's our character, Jane. All right, friends, let's start with the first chapter, The Watcher. Go ahead, pause your video and read this page now. Next section is Off to Africa. Friends, pause your video and read this page now. Pause your video and read this page now. Oh, sorry, friends, I want to tell you one more thing. This name is Dr. Leakey. His name is excellent. All right, go ahead and pause your video and read this page now. Excellent reading. All right, friends, pause your video and read this page now. Let's review some words before we move on. This is Tanzania. This word is, say Tanzania. Good, and this word is Gombe. This word is Gombe. Say it. Good, so that's the forest that Jane Goodall did her studies in of chimpanzees. All right, our next chapter, the Gombe Gang. Go ahead and pause your video and read this page now. Pause your video and read this page now. Nice reading, keep going, you got it. Pause your video and read this page now. Excuse me, friends. Pause your video and read this page now. Nice reading, we're almost there. Pause your video and read this page now. Let's go ahead and read our next chapter, Trouble in the Forest. Pause your video and read this page now. Nice job. Pause your video and read this page now. Good job, friends. Pause your video and read this page now. And our last page is our glossary. Remember, the glossary tells us the definitions or the meanings of our words that are bolded. So these words are bolded because they have that big black text around them. So please read the words and their definitions in our glossary now. Awesome reading, friends. There were some tricky words in this book, and I know that my friends didn't guess. I know that they read through the word or looked for their blends, ends, and vowel themes or cross-checked. Nice job. All right, let's go ahead with our first page, The Watcher. What did Jane love as a child? What did Jane love as a child? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I read that Jane loves to watch animals and read stories about them. I know that there are some of you watching this video who love animals and love to read stories about animals. So show connection if you agree with Jane and you love to watch and read about animals. So cool. Nice job. What was Jane's dream? What was Jane's dream? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I read that Jane dreamed of living in Africa and writing stories about wild animals. So her dream when she was a little girl was to live in Africa and write stories about animals. Did she achieve her dream? You should already know that answer, but we're going to find out. All right, here we go. What did Jane do when she was old enough? What did Jane do when she was old enough? Pause your video and answer your question now. In the story, I read that she saved her money and went on a trip to Africa. So when Jane grew up a little bit, she worked, she saved her money up so that she could go on a trip to Africa. And when she was in Africa, she met a famous scientist, and his name was Dr. Louis Leakey. His name was Dr. Leakey. His name was? Yes. So she went to Africa and she met the scientist in Africa. Let's see what happens next. All right. What did Jane study when she was in Africa? What did Jane study? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I read that the study would look at how chimpanzees behave. So Jane is studying the way that chimpanzees work. So she's studying the way they move, the way they talk, the way they eat, the way they run. She's studying the way that chimpanzees are. So she, just like you guys, she is noticing and wondering about chimpanzees. You friends know how to read a book and notice and wonder, where you notice things that are really interesting and you wonder about things that you don't know about. Jane is studying chimpanzees, and when she's studying them, she's noticing and wondering so that she can learn more about chimpanzees. Nice job, friends. I love that. What continent, whoa, Miss Rossi, what continent did Jane go to? Now I'm asking you this question because we learned our continent song earlier this year, and I want you to remember what a continent is. So we're going to review our song real quick. I'm going to sing it for you once. If you know it, you can sing it with me. Here we go. North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa. Where's Australia? There's Australia. Don't forget Antarctica. All right, so tell me, what continent did Jane go to? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I see that she went to Tanzania, which is right here on my map, and she went to the Gombe Forest. I see that on the map, there's this big word that tells me what continent that is. Friends, the continent is Africa. Yes, Jane went to Africa to study chimpanzees. Really nice job. How did the chimps feel about Jane at first? How did the chimps feel about Jane at first? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I read that most of the chimps were afraid of Jane at first. They were scared of her at first. Yes, very nice job. Who is the chimp that wasn't scared of Jane? Who is the chimp that wasn't scared of Jane? Good. In the story I read, David trusted her. So this is David, and he trusted Jane. The other chimps were afraid of her because she was a human. Nice job. How did other scientists feel about Jane's notes? How did other scientists feel about Jane's notes? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I read that her notes upset scientists. So other scientists were reading Jane's notices and wonders, and they did not like what she had to say. Why were the other scientists upset at Jane's notes? Why were they upset? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I read that the others, excuse me, friends, that the other scientists had their own beliefs and ideas of how chimpanzees behave. So they did not agree with Jane. They thought that Jane was wrong. They thought that Jane was, they were upset about her notes because they said, chimpanzees can't do that. Chimpanzees can't do that. But Jane, she showed bravery and she stuck with it. So let's see what happens. What did Jane say that chimpanzees could do? What did Jane say that chimpanzees could do? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story I read that Jane said that chimpanzees use sticks and tools to dig up bugs to eat. So it's kind of like how we eat. We dig and we eat. We dig and we eat. That's kind of what she's saying that chimpanzees can do too. She also said that they show feelings like humans. So chimpanzees can feel scared, brave, strong, nervous, shy, happy, sad, jealous, frustrated, mad, just like we do. Wow, but they're animals and we're humans. So Jane was saying, look, scientists, look what these chimpanzees can do. And the scientists were saying, no, they can't. You are not right. So let's see what happens. What feelings or what other animal are chimpanzees similar to? We know the word similar means the same as. So Jane tells us that chimpanzees are similar to another animal. What are chimpanzees most similar to? Pause your video and answer that question now. Well, on this page, I see that Jane talks about humans, that chimpanzees have humans like animals. And on this page, I see that Jane says each chimp has its own personality, just like humans. So that makes me think that chimpanzees are similar to humans. Chimpanzees are similar to, yeah, they are similar to humans. They have feelings like us, and they have personalities like us. In the story, Jane says that they are happy, sad, and angry. Wow, just like we can be. Awesome job. What did Jane's, what did Jane's work do for other scientists? What did Jane's work do for other scientists? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I read that Jane made other scientists think again about their beliefs and ideas about chimps. So she made the scientists say, oh, maybe Jane is right. So she made them rethink. She made them, ooh, bonus question. What is my prefix in the word rethink? And what is my prefix in the word rethink? The prefix is re. The prefix is, and remember, re means again. Re means, nice job. Jane also showed them that some of their ideas might be wrong. And Jane, so let me ask you one more question. Who was correct? Jane or the other scientists? Who was correct? Yeah, Jane. Some scientists began to agree with Jane. She was studying the chimpanzees so much and she knew so much information that other scientists began to agree with her. Woohoo, thank God. Okay. Friends, what was the trouble that the chimpanzees were facing in the forests? What was the trouble or the problem that the chimpanzees were facing in the forest? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I read that people were cutting down trees in the forest and that hunters were stealing the baby chimps. So people were going to the forest where they lived, cutting down the trees and stealing the baby chimps from their families. So my next question is, how did Jane feel about the trouble in the forest? How does Jane feel about the trouble in the forest? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I read that Jane is worried. Jane is worried or scared or frightened about what the people are taking trees and chimps from the forest. In the story, it says worried. You also could have said scared or frightened or nervous too. She doesn't want her chimpanzees' homes to be destroyed. Excellent job. What did Jane do to help save the forest? What did Jane do to help save the forest? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I read that she talked about her work with many people around the world. So Jane, here's a picture of Jane. She's speaking and she's telling people around the world about all of her work. And she asks them to help save the chimps and the forest. So I'm going to answer that question one more time. In the story, I read that Jane talks to people around the world and asks them to help save the forest. So that is what she does to help the chimpanzees. Very brave of her. Jane Goodall today. All right. What does Jane still do today? She is still alive and she's still doing work today. So tell me, what does Jane still do for the chimpanzees today? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I read that she still works to protect the forest and the chimpanzees from harm. So even today, Jane tells people about the chimpanzees in the forest, and she makes sure that people don't harm them or cut down their homes. Wow, Jane, that is so impressive. Nice reading today, my friends. We have the glossary. One more question, my challenge question, my second grade question is, tell me one thing that you've learned from Jane. What is one thing that you learned from Jane? Pause your video and answer that question now. In the story, I know that Jane had a dream to go to Africa, and she followed her dream by working hard and saving her money. And so I learned from Jane that if I have a dream, like maybe I want to go to Africa and study animals, or maybe I want to live in a different country, or maybe I want to be a doctor or a scientist, I know that if I work hard and try my best, I can achieve that dream. So that is what I learned from Jane. I also learned that you can be an advocate. You can be an advocate means someone who supports something, like how Jane supports her animals. She's an advocate for them. That means she fights for what she thinks is right for her animals. So just like Martin Luther King fought for unfair laws, and Rosa Parks fought for equality, and Ruby Bridges fought for equal schools, Jane did something a little bit different, but she makes sure to fight for the animals that she works with in the rainforest. You probably learned other things from Jane, and I'm so, so proud of you if you didn't answer that question. Excellent, excellent job. Okay, I have a couple of announcements before we close out today. It is Thursday, which means we have our Zoom party today at 4. I can't wait to see you there. We're going to have a special Zoom party planned. We only have 2 more Zoom parties, friends. So we really want to see you there if you can. Please make sure you're watching your 3 other videos today. Please make sure you're doing 30 minutes of Lexia, 30 minutes of Zern, and are reading a juicy book. All right, friends, I'm so proud of you. I love you all. I will see you at the Zoom party today. Bye-bye.